I know a lot of people, a lot of chefs and a lot of more experienced cooks turn their nose up to simple foods like canned foods. But I've got some recipes that will not turn their nose up, but turn heads, because we are going to make simple canned foods into a feast for the soul, right here on Savoring Our Faith. You know, canned foods is one of those things that you kind of just donate to, like causes where people are asking to feed the poor. But what we want to do is show you that canned foods can be absolutely delicious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some canned olives for a beautiful tapenade with infused flavors from salty, briny capers, as well as olives and anchovies, a fantastic topping on regular bread. Another canned food that we're going to be using is going to come inspired from the country of Guam, the Spam capital of the world. And we are actually going to be turning regular canned Spam into a Spaminara with some rigatoni pasta, using traditional Italian techniques to make carbonara. But instead of pancetta, we're going to use lardon pieces of Spam. And the final dish that we're going to be making is something that my mom made. It's called carne norte, which is basically corned beef, but from a can. And we're going to infuse it with some beautiful tomato puree, and it's going to be a base for a wonderful leftover pasta frittata. So let me show you what we're doing right now. We've got just a pot of boiling water, and I've got this pan right on top of it to keep it boiling and to keep it keep the water in there. But I want to make sure that we get this tapenade out of the way. What you're going to need is a food processor or a pestle, and all you're going to do is simply add 1 can of the olive. We are going to also use black olive as well as some bottled olives. You know, these are the martini olives with a little bit of pimento in it. We're going to also put in some capers, about 2 tablespoons or 1.5 tablespoons of capers. We're also going to add about 5 or 6 anchovy fillets. Now I know that people are going to say, well, I don't like anchovies. Don't worry, another canned food, and no one's going to even know it, all right? So we're going to add about 4 or 5 pieces of that fillet. Then we're also going to put in some parsley, and I'm just going to use a little bit of the leaves themselves and just putting it all in here. I know that I'm crowding this out. Don't worry, because we're going to drizzle in some olive oil as well, and it'll puree very nicely. I'm also going to make sure that there is a crushed garlic clove in that as well. So real simple. What I want to do is make sure that it is blended all together. So just going to kind of cut that out a little bit. And then we're also going to put in some Dijon mustard, and then we're finally going to add in just some lemon and a little bit of the lemon zest as well, just to give it that nice, bold, bright flavor. So let me make a little bit of room here. We're going to pulse in just a few minutes, adding some salt, pepper, and then drizzling some olive oil. Now what I've got this, I've been pulsing it down a few times, and what I'm just simply doing is taking the lid off, adding a little bit of olive oil, and just using my spoon to just kind of position things so that it blends up a little bit more easily. And we do want a kind of a chunky consistency, and so we'll just keep pulsing it until we get there, and we'll see how canned foods can taste really good. All right, so after some pulsing and some reconfiguring, I think we are just about there. And what we're going to do now is just simply allow this to kind of come together. Here we go. Getting this off, and let's see what we've got here. We've got a nice, beautiful color. It's actually very colorful. It's got some flecks of green from the parsley, some orange from the pimiento, and then we've got that nice, dark, earthy color. Anchovies, no one will even know it's there. On the side, however, we're going to just simply cut out some regular pieces of Italian bread. I've removed the crusting, didn't throw it away. What you can simply do is use that for some breadcrumbs. Just cut them all up, dry them out, toss in some olive oil and some herbs, and you've got yourself some breadcrumbs. Nothing goes to waste. And even the simple foods, like canned foods, can taste so good. So we've got some of this bread that we just grilled up with some olive oil, and real simple. Can't get any simpler than this. Just take a little bit of this, put it right on top, and we're going to be plating all of these out and show how canned foods, it's not just for simple flavors. If you know what to do with it, it can be bold and delicious. I don't think anyone is going to turn their nose up to this canned food. Canned food made beautiful, bold, and delicious. It's kind of interesting that something so good and delicious can come out of a can. You know, and that can maybe be an image of humanity. We can be very hard on the outside, and we need something that's going to be able to penetrate us to get inside. And so, you know what? If you come across anyone who's very difficult to be with or to work with, and they're as hard as that canned food, be very gentle, be very careful, but in patience, I bet you'll be able to find a way to open up to them, have them open up to you, and therefore revealing the true goodness that's inside of all of us. All right, the next set of canned foods that I'm going to be doing is going to be this corned beef, and this is something that really brings me back to when I was a kid, and I love doing this because this thing comes with a little key that kind of helps open this up. This is when you are out in the field, I guess, somewhere, and you don't have a can opener. This will open up for you. So what I'm going to do is just simply open this can up. I'm going to cut up some onions, dice that out, put in another herb, basically this flat leaf parsley. I'm going to saute it all together. I know that this doesn't look attractive, but don't worry, it's going to taste good. Most foods, if you see it in its natural habitat, doesn't necessarily look delicious. But if there's one thing that I can say about canned foods, that even though it's poor man's food, it doesn't mean that you have to be poor to eat it. As a matter of fact, you just have to have good taste if you're going to eat something like this, as long as you don't eat it just right out of the can. What I'm going to do is kind of give it new life and let you know that food should never have its nose turned up to. You should never turn your nose up to any food, no matter how poor or how different or how cheap it might be, because, you know, one man's junk is another man's treasure. And I can just tell you that there are so many hungry people in the world that if they see something like this, we may turn our nose up to it, but they thank God for it, and so should we. All right, now that I've got this all kind of chopped up, we're going to be making a deep flavored kind of sauce, a tomato-based sauce with all of these aromatics. This is going to add the nice protein texture to it. We're going to actually drizzle a little bit of olive oil in this pan, saute the onions, the garlic, the parsley. You can almost see an Italian theme here going, which is exactly what we want to do. We want to make sure that we are going to use some leftover pastas too. Again, one of those things that people turn their nose up towards is they just think that leftovers, how gauche is that? No, not in my family. We would eat everything, and thank God for my mom and dad's creative skills, because they made even some of the simple foods taste so delicious. So here we go. We're just going to simply add all of this together, let that continue to saute, and while that's happening, I'm going to just wipe this down a little bit and start on the Spam itself. Now the Spam is kind of fun. It's going to be served with like a carbonara. I've got some boiling water here. I'm just going to throw in some rigatoni, and we're going to get this cooked up. And this is a timing issue, so you got to make sure that by the time this pasta is done, this Spam is going to be cooked down and rendered out really beautifully, because the heat from the pasta is what is going to cook these eggs that will make a beautiful, delicious cream sauce. So here we go. That's going to go in there about 12 minutes, which means I've only got a limited amount of time to get this Spam cut up, cubed up into little pieces and sauteing perfectly. So I'm going to get my pan going right now and start cutting open the Spam. So what I've got is this can of Spam opened up. I kind of had to, kind of force it out of the can a little bit. I'm just cutting it into strips, and here's how my mom and dad would kind of serve it to us. They would just simply fry it up and serve it with some rice, and then you'd have something sweet and sour like a relish or even just a pickle. And to be honest with you, even though it was very simple food, it was delicious, and more importantly, it brings back really a beautiful memory of just eating simply but faithfully all together. And so what I'm doing right now is just simply cutting them up, organizing my cutting or my blade work so that I'm cutting them into these small cubes, almost like lardon pieces. And we're just going to saute them, get them nice and crisp. It will have almost the flavor of bacon, simply because that's kind of what Spam is. It's just a bunch of different pork products kind of blended all together. And to it is added some chemicals to keep it preserved, which is why even though, expensive food might taste really good, it's not going to last forever. This stuff could definitely last forever. And especially if you're working with a budget, this is definitely a very helpful thing. All right, so we've got this onion sauteing. I'm going to add just a little bit more olive oil to this here. Season it with some salt and some pepper. And then to this, I am going to add the corned beef. So a little bit of salt and pepper. And then we're going to throw in some tomato sauce as well. So here's my salt. This is going to help bring it all the flavors out. Just allowing this to cook. We see that the pasta is continuing to do its thing. And again, it's a timing issue. While all of this is happening, I've got to actually beat some eggs. I've got basically 3 eggs and 3 egg yolks that I'm going to be beating all together. I'm going to drizzle in just a little bit of white wine. And you're thinking, why white wine? Well, because this is going to help stop the cooking process. It's so easy to kind of cook the eggs as a scrambled egg, and you lose the purpose of the sauce itself. So there you go, adding that. We're going to also put in some butter, some soft butter, and then also a little bit of Parmesan cheese as well. And most people will not put in cream for their carbonara. I'm going to reserve this in case I want to make it just a little bit creamier. Let me salt this up too. And the reason why they call it carbonara is because it's kind of got this carbon look to it from all of the pepper. So I've got to put in a tremendous amount of pepper, waiting for this to saute down, waiting for this to turn nice and crispy, adding more pepper, waiting for the pasta to boil. But I guarantee you it will all come together. A little surprise and a little can of Spam. You're going to definitely think a little bit better of the simple foods that come from a can. A lot of times people turn their nose to canned foods because is kind of processed food. But sometimes that's the only thing you have, and you've got to ask for inspiration to make that canned food taste delicious. You know what that basically means? Whenever you open up some canned food, invite God into that experience, and He can turn something so ordinary into something pretty fantastic. Okay, now that this sauce is almost ready, I'm going to also start beating the eggs for my frittata. I'm going to make sure that the onions are just, they're starting to saute, caramelize enough. Good consistency, at least a color for me, to start now with, by adding this stuff to it, this corned beef. And this corned beef is going to require me to kind of break it up a little bit because you can see it's pretty dense. And what is corned beef in the can? Well, I think it's just, once again, processed meats. Probably not the healthiest thing for you to eat every day. But in some cases, it is less expensive, so a lot of people kind of turn to it. And what I'm going to do is make sure that you don't just simply eat this, but you simply add to it so that it makes it just a little bit more special. And I guarantee you this recipe will make simple canned food a little bit more special. So we'll wait until this cooks down as well. You can see I'm moistening it up with the juices that are coming from the onions themselves. And once that browns just a little bit more, we're going to add some tomatoes to it. Here I got to make sure that the Spam is sauteing nicely. I see that it is. It's almost having the consistency. Oh, that's what I want. You can see the caramelizing that's coming from it. It's beautiful. Again, it's reminding me a lot of when I was a kid. But to aid with this cooking process, a little drizzle of olive oil, turn the heat down so that it kind of cooks nice and slowly. We've got the pasta cooking. It is definitely coming together. So now that we've got this going, this is going to be the base for the sauce of a frittata. What I'm going to do now, since it's browning just enough, I'm going to add some tomato sauce to it. The rest of that white wine, just to deglaze it a little bit. Ooh, there you go. Add some tomato sauce that I've opened up here. And now just let that braise. Throw it on some pasta. Delicious, absolutely delicious. We're going to definitely season this up with some salt and pepper as well as we taste away. But you can see it's almost like a ragu. Now granted, most people wouldn't use corned beef hash for ragu, but I would, because it creates a nice little chunky consistency, and it's going to be awesome with this frittata that I'm going to make up. Super, super simple. Okay, this is definitely done. I'm going to let this continue to cook out. One more little toss, and then we're going to wait for the pasta to cook. We've got the sauce all ready to go. Let me give a go to see how this pasta's coming along. Whoa, we've got just about another minute or two. I can feel that it is definitely getting there. However, while all of that is going on, let me now beat these eggs so that I can get this ready for my frittata. You know, this world is so fearful of the end times to the point that during crises or even during times of war, people will hoard canned foods because they have a lot of preservatives in them, and that they'll last forever. But we got to remember something, folks. Nothing is going to last forever unless you have the food that brings you to eternal life. And so canned foods, yeah, they're going to last a long time, but there's only one food that will last for eternity. Okay, this is all kind of simmering down nicely. I'm going to let that continue to cook down, adding a generous portion of olive oil to make our frittata, because our frittata is going to use also some leftover spaghetti, or actually that's linguine. Season this up with some salt and pepper. I am also going to add a little bit of cheese, but not just yet. Now that this is all mixed up, basically into a hot non-stick pan, because I've got to kind of fluffen this up a little bit using a little bit of some old leftover linguine. And it's got to be cooked. We're just going to add it all in there. You're going to see how it's going to give a little bit of body and levity. And I do recommend that families over-make the pasta because you can use this so easily again. Leftovers don't have to be yucky. You can definitely make it taste delicious. I'm going to just use a little bit more salt and pepper. And then as this continues to braise down, I know that the pasta here is definitely cooked, so I'm going to just strain this out. And here's where the timing is absolutely necessary. All right, we're going to put this down. We're going to let the heat of the pasta cook the egg. Yes, I've got that heat still on because I'm going to actually use it at the very last minute. Okay, now that that is up, let's put this, here we go. I'll catch that around. Now, actually let me turn that down. If I'm looking a little frantic, it's because this is required. Because I need to put the hot pasta, okay, shoo, and plenty of time here. And I'm going to let this just kind of sit there a little bit. If there was a little bit of hot water there to kind of create a double broiler, that would be a very good thing, because the heat of the pasta, you can see, is cooking this to a creamy consistency without making it turn into scrambled eggs, because that would not be good. But now to the pasta, I am going to add a little bit of the pieces here of the Spam. The heat of the Spam is also going to help cook down this cream-based egg sauce. Delicious. Oh my gosh. I think the Italians would actually be pleased by this. Now that this is done though, guess what I've got to do? Let that sit off to the side. I got to make sure that this frittata is cooking well. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to make sure that I kind of like turn it into a little bit of a scrambled egg. And I think, you know, we're at that point where I'm actually ready to flip it around. To flip this around, here's what you need. You need to cover this up on one side, flip it over. Look at that beautiful little tort there. And this is almost cooked. I'm just going to return it, let it settle, and then we're going to be ready to eat and serve in just a minute. Okay, I know that this egg is cooked. I rinsed this pan off so that there was no uncooked egg on it. I'm gonna flip it around. Oh, here we go. Beautiful. Look at that. Let that settle for just a quick minute as I begin some plating. But you can see with the pasta, the sauce has, you know, thickened up rather beautifully. However, I think I need to add a little bit more Parmesan cheese to it. So real simple, just take some grated Parmesan cheese. Maybe that'll be about a little bit less than a quarter cup. Ah, that is the consistency that I want. The cheese will melt beautifully, and the carbonara is just, spaminara is just about ready for plating. So let me go ahead and plate this up right now. And you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna actually use a little fancy bowl. Why? Well, because if people had no idea that this was Spam, or if they've never had Spam before, or if they didn't have any prejudices to this quote-unquote poor man's food, they would probably think that this was definitely, I'm making a mess here. Make probably about a $15 to $20 plate. All right, so, oh my gosh. Like I said, I think the Italians would be very, very proud of this. Put just a little bit more on here. Oh, the pepper's got some beautiful spicing on it. And listen, if you want, just for a little even more tongue-in-cheek fashion, just top that off with a little bit more of that beautiful Spam, a little bit more of the, I can't believe I just called Spam beautiful, but it is gonna taste definitely beautiful. Now it's time to kind of plate this little frittata here. Let me see what I've got. Let me get a knife so that we can cut this out. Here we go. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna make a nice little section cut, like almost like a little bit of a pie. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take, again, a very attractive plate. We're gonna use this as a base and as a sauce. I mean, it looks absolutely delicious. No one would have ever known that this is actually corned beef hash. And now here's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna take this little section right here, put it right on top. And if I can find some fresh herbs, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use a little bit of this fresh herb garnish right here, right on top. And what you have are 3 canned foods that are definitely going to turn heads and, how shall I say, convert hearts. That poor man's food doesn't have to be poor. With a little bit of grace, it definitely helps us to realize that food, no matter where it comes from, is something that we ought to be grateful for. This will help you savor our faith. See you next time on EWTN.